Okay. So this is my masterclass called Overcoming Underearning, and we were talking today about our money fears and our pricing and all of the things that come up when soul-led entrepreneurs like me and the rest of you have businesses, and sometimes we don't think we're worth something, or we stay in this stagnant place, or all of these things happen. So we're going to start by just going around and let me hear what made you show up today before we jump into the topics. And one of the reasons I do this is so I can answer all of your questions and make sure I make it valuable for every single one of you. Pamela, what made you come up today?
Hi everyone. Well, I did your last month, and you and I spoke recently, and I thought, well, I would be good to do then another masterclass. I don't think I knew the topic at first, but the topic is good in the sense the topic is always good. I find that I say to myself that I'm always going into my patient's pocketbook, like whether they can afford me or not. And I sometimes offer not a discount, but I lessen what they for the appointment.
Love that.
And I think, and they have an app, and I do that. And I thought, oh, why am I doing that? So I did something last week about writing something up for myself so that I can just look at that and not just, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's sort of lessening what Hank was saying too, my value and being in the patient's pocketbook, which
Yeah.
is my business to be in.
Right. I love that. Thank you. We will definitely touch on that.
Thank
Jenny,
you.
how about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like there's something to be gained in all the master classes, and I am here to learn and grow. And where can I make application? And this is a great topic because I do wonder where I'm at in pricing and comparing. I don't really have a lot of people to compare my price cost and stuff too. So it's I feel like a great topic.
Terrific. Okay. Shirley, how about you?
Oh, hello everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I am very new to your organization, and I thought that this topic was very interesting to me because I'd like to know, I'm starting out in launching my marketing practice, and
Okay.
I want to know how to price myself. So I thought this would be a very useful discussion.
Awesome. We're definitely going to talk about pricing, because that's usually half the problem. Anita, how about you?
Hello, everyone. This is my first time here on a live class with Camille. We met and spoke a couple of times, so I was very interested in participating and just seeing how this goes. But also, I like the topic because people really love what I do and would jump all in, but then it's always an issue with finances for them. So if I could, pick something up here as to perhaps why I attract clients that can't pay with ease, that would be awesome.
I love that. All right. Elaine, how about you?
Yeah, very similar to Anita. I often get, I love what you do, you're inspiring and all of these things. And then when it comes to the money piece, yeah, I think for me, maybe it's more about creating the value in the mind of the client, but really where does that meet, right? Where's that kind of sweet spot?
I love that. Creating value in the mind of the client is the most important part. We will absolutely talk about that. And thank you. Maureen, how about you?
I love what everybody said. And Camille, you offer wonderful, wonderful master classes. And finally, I've been able to come to one. It's wonderful. And yeah, offering value so that the person will buy. And I appreciate when you said, Anita and Elaine, like attracting clients that can't pay. So I guess looking at what's happening with that. same thing. We love what you do. We're inspired. And what I'm feeling is I do have a bit of a script and I haven't followed it for a number of years and I still have clients. However, when I follow it, I feel like I'm salesy and unauthentic and I'm not comfortable with how I approach it. Yet my very first client came to me because of what I said. So I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. How do you create that value and then sell that value? And, why am I attracting clients that love what I do yet don't want to pay? So anyway, interesting topic, overcoming under earning.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Dr. Catherine, how about you?
Well, I also appreciate and relate to everything that's been said and think it is for me, a combination of all these things. Stay out of their pocketbook, attract clients who pay with ease, creating value in the mind of the client. And I've read several of Barbara Stanny's books and have been working on this for some time and was called back into you because of the class you were offering on this topic, Camille. And it's gone a lot better. So I know it can shift, but for me, it really is like baby steps. And it's almost like my nervous system has to adjust. Like first I reined in my emails and not letting people kind of take advantage of me that way. And I can't do the harshest form of a cancellation policy I'm finding. So I found like a halfway point that feels okay, but I do plan to get to the full industry standard for my folks for that, because I too feel like people come to me in this place of so much need, and my human design is the 3-5 helper. And so I think it's a little bit in me plus conditioning to like be giving all the time. But I realize then I can't meet my own financial obligations or pay for the things I need in my life if I'm always giving to everyone else. So it's this fine alignment. And it's something I really wrestle with, if that isn't, it's hard. It is when you're solely aligned. I do think I watch people who do it with more ease and I try and learn from them, but I don't quite feel like that person yet. So
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. You are not alone. You are not alone. It's stuff that I've struggled with. I'm sure everyone here has struggled with at one point until it just gets to be in flow. And a lot of it comes around setting our boundaries, having our own self-worth and self-confidence in what we do, and providing that value, right? What Elaine said, showing our clients our value. So we'll talk about all of that. Sherry and Sarah, thank you for joining us. I just asked everyone what made them show up and take this masterclass on overcoming under earning. So if you guys want to share. Sherry, you just popped on. What made you show up today? You're on mute too.
Well, being a new business, trying to do it all by myself, it's a struggle, right? And trying to get the right clients that can afford your program. And it's just like right now, I'm offering scholarships to get them in my new launch of a 12-week online group coaching.
Okay.
Just to try to fill seats and get this, launched. It's
Yeah.
the first one. I've never done a group online coaching, so I've always done one-on-ones. So it's new, it's exciting, and we'll see how it goes, right?
Yeah, and I'd love to add to, filling seats sometimes is a great idea when you're doing group programs, just to get the testimonials, to just kind of go through the flow. You just have to know when it's worth it, when it's not worth it. But sometimes, just getting yourself out there, especially if you're not well known or you're running a program for the first time, sometimes just selling some of those seats is fine.
Yeah.
Right. It's really about cash flow.
Right. I'm actually doing a challenge next week, excuse me, to try to, so they get a taste for 3 days of some of the things that they'll learn, and hopefully make that a converting, opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Sarah, do you want to tell us why you joined, or are you busy right now? All right. Sarah can jump on later. All right. I'm gonna spotlight myself for everyone so I can, and I'll try to see you guys. I try to keep everything kind of pretty open. And so interact. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat and I'll see it, or you can raise your hand. That makes you pop up on my screen and just makes it easier because I'm actually floating through, because when I spotlight myself, it's a little harder. All right, so let's talk about overcoming under earning and some of the things that you guys brought up. I'm actually not sure who brought it up, but that said they didn't make all my master classes. If there's a master class that you wanted to take, all the replays are free and available to all of you. So they're either on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, or they're in our learning library or learning academy. I don't even know what I call it anymore, which you can go to our homepage on our website, soulprofessional.com. And there's an orange button that says Learning Academy, and then it'll say free courses. And you can catch all of my stuff there, if not the YouTube channel. So make sure, oh, you can also go on our website under masterclasses. If you go to the bottom, they're all in a row of how I presented them. So you can go back and see any of those masterclasses you've missed. All right, so let's start talking about some of these issues that you guys brought up. I think the biggest one is, can they afford me? A couple of you brought this up, right? Or talking to people and they love what you do and you're like, yeah, but I can't afford you, or I want to do it sometimes. And I will tell you, even personally, I chased people for a really, really long time. And now I have totally let go of that whole thing. And you'll probably see if you've taken my stuff, I do not force convert anymore. I don't do anything like that, because I'm like, when you are ready, you show up. And I'm seeing that more and more, but I had to change. That was me, right? That wasn't the people I was working with, but it was the people I was hanging out with. And I think that's the biggest difference. When you start hanging around entrepreneurs and other people that have successful businesses and are doing it, like people that are higher than you, right? You start to realize and see evidence. That's my big word. When you can find evidence that other people are doing it, you can say, well, me too. I can do that. If they can do that, I can do that. Right? Because each one of us has a very unique ability. We are not competition with each other. So when you're doing your pricing, you really don't have to worry about what other people are pricing, because you're pricing for who you are. Right? There are a lot of people that do a lot of the same thing, or at least their titles, right? A lot of the same things in the world, right? We can just say lawyers, right? Everyone comes out of law school, they pass their bar exam, they're all educated the same way, but they command very different prices, right? And if you've ever needed a lawyer for whatever you need, price is probably not your first thing that you look at. First, you want to see if someone can actually win you a case, right? Or you get the best person for the job. Now, you may narrow it down and say, well, this one seems as good as this one, and this one's cheaper, and I'm going to take that. That does happen, right? But there are lawyers out there that charge $200 an hour, and there are lawyers out there that charge $2,000 an hour, right? Same with doctors, right? There's doctors that charge a lot of money, and there's doctors that'll take any patient anytime, just to fill their practice, right? They're usually not the best ones. But the best ones probably don't take insurance, and they're charging thousands and thousands of dollars, right? They all came out of the same medical school. They all have the same thing, but they've really created a unique ability and a brand for themselves, right? So that's where the differentiation is. And if you've been to some of my master classes, I am constantly talking about your specific branding, the words that you use, what's your unique identifier, and how are you changing people's lives? What is the value that you're bringing? If you have a program, because a couple of you brought programs and we talked about filling seats, so I'll talk about that a little bit. And I will say sometimes it is worth it if it's your first time doing something. Now, if you've done it multiple times and you can't fill seats, there's other issues, right? But if you're just starting a program, or you're doing a retreat for the first time, or you're trying something new or going into a different lane, sometimes giving a discount to the people that already love your services and know who you are as a person is a great way to start people, you know, to build up a program, right? When I started my community, for anyone that came in the first year, I gave them 50% off, right? This was 9 years ago. Some of those people are still with me today. It's amazing, right? But the community only worked when there were people in it, right? So if you were the first few people coming in, there was no community, right? So I had to do something to get people into the community, right? Right now, I'm running through the summer. I started it like last month because I redesigned our business and I let go of a lot of the levels of my membership. And I just decided to do the top level, like how I opened. I started with 50% off my membership. And I started because I was like, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that's already out there that have been watching me for years, that have wanted to join, but never had the money to join, or didn't make the commitment to join. So I think it was last month or 2 months ago, I started I'm going to slash the price at 50% off. And then those that really want to come in will come in, right? But I know that price is really not the deciding factor for most people. It's value. It's not price, because I've done the same program for $200 that I've done for $2,000. And the price was never the problem, right? It's the value, or how I presented it, or who I was and how I attract, right? So I do the exact same work I've always done, but now I'm more credible because more people know me, I have more success stories, but it's pretty much the same work I've always done, right? So I started doing 50% off, and now it's 45% off, and next month it'll be 40% off, and I'll keep doing it as I'm rebuilding my community. And that was something very deliberate I did, because I let go of all these lower levels. Our basic level is now our free level, right? That was a decision that I had to make. So people that were paying me $40 a month, I give it away for free. And that was because I wanted a different type of community, and I made that decision, right? Does that make sense? Because I wanted to up level. So I needed to up level who was hanging around, who I was attracting. So the community had so much more value to everybody. Does that make sense? So sometimes filling your seats to people that already know, like, and trust you is worth it. Sometimes filling your seats with people that have no idea who you are could go either way, right? I do a lot of free stuff, so people see my value. They see how I teach. They know if they resonate with me or not, right? That's how I show value. And people can hang out with me for years, and that's okay, right? If people want to upgrade to something else, they can. Now I have my summer accelerator and other things. I didn't have those before. But if those same people that came to my free stuff said, well, I can't afford that next level, I would not discount it specifically for them to come in. I am not filling that seat, because I have enough people that are paying a lot of money for that seat, right? Especially for my one-on-one work. I don't discount my one-on-one work for anybody. I don't care if you've been with me for years, right? My members actually get a little bit of a break, but they're already paying for membership. So if I'm doing a new program, there's usually a member price, right? But that's their bonus for hanging out with me for so long. Does that make sense? So sometimes filling seats is good if you want to test something. It's good if you just need to cash flow, like you've already made a commitment, and sometimes you just need cash flow to make that happen. But you have to think through, why is that happening? Does that make sense? Any questions on that? So I do want to go back to your general one-on-one work, or your packages, or whatever you're selling, that you're saying, well, I talk to people and I have these one-on-ones and they love what I do, but then they don't buy from me. Many times, and I can't say specifically, but if anyone wants to talk about their thing, we can talk about that. Many times it's where you're putting stuff out, right? So if you're hanging out in a lot of free groups or a lot of free networking, and some free networking is excellent, so it's not all groups, but it's who you're hanging out with. So if you're hanging around a networking group, or a very big free Facebook group or something, and everyone's there to sell to everybody else, but no one's actually buying, that's not a really, like, having those one-on-one conversations with people isn't really worth it, because they're not investing in anyone else. They're not investing in you, and you're probably not investing in them, right? So unless you've built a real rapport with someone, they've gotten to experience your work, and that's where you show value, right? That's why I do free stuff. That's where people see who I am, my value. That's when it's a lot easier to say, do you want to have a conversation about working together? I always think it's a great thing to have maybe a single session or a cheaper session, or like a stepping point for someone, a consulting that they can pay something. It could be your lost leader. So they get to experience your work before you go saying, I have the $6,000 program, because that is not where people are going to come into, right? So you need an easy entry for them to know who you are and to have experienced your work. I love the free anything, like free webinars, free classes, free groups, free, like, I don't know what you do, right? Free healing circles, things like that. So you can really get to know someone's work. Makes a lot more sense. And then by the time you're on a call with someone, they already know. You're not saying for the first time, hey, I'm this great healer and I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this and I can help you, right? Because then you're kind of coming at them. They haven't experienced you. When they experience you, that's when they can say, oh my gosh, you're so worth my time. There was a healer that I'm looking at, and believe me, I have a plethora of healers I can pick from, right? And that's how I actually test people's work, because I think many times, because people know who I am, I'll get a special service, like, I want to know who they are in their natural habitat. So I'll go to people's healing circles or moon rituals, or like if I'm looking for someone, I want to experience them as they're teaching a group or teaching something, and get to know who they are. And like all of us, we probably lurk around and meet a lot of people and kind of see what they do. Well, that's what your clients are doing for you, right? So it's a lot easier when you have an introductory something. Does that make sense? Any questions around that? Is that helpful for the people that brought up the question of they love your services, but they aren't buying? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. Okay. Another great question is to ask, like, do you think I'll solve that problem for you? Right. So one of the things I always do is, what made you jump on a call with me? I should point out that when you meet someone in networking and then you have a one-on-one, that is not a sales call. Ever, ever, ever. It is not a sales call. You should not be talking. You can present, this is who I am, right? But you are not selling to that person ever. Just because you got on a one-on-one does not mean that that is a sales call. If they start to ask about your stuff, right, you can say, oh, I have this. Like, I always invite people to my free stuff so they can see who I am, right? And then I'll know if there's a follow-up, or I can say, oh, if you're really interested in that, we can set a different call to talk about that. Does that make sense? Because then that's very clearly a sales call. Does that make sense? Yeah, Hank,
Does,
I
but
love your smile. Go ahead.
I think there's a fine line here sometimes, because when you have a one-on-one, for me, the purpose is always to hear about what the person does.
Mhm.
and talk about what I do. And in a sense, whenever you talk about what you do, that's a type of a pitch, but you're not coming on strong to them and saying, you know, join now, sign up now, do this, do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will end up closing a person, or, you know, closing a deal with somebody on that first call. I mean, it doesn't happen all that much, but it can happen. But no, I do agree that that's not your purpose for going into the call, but there should be a mutual sharing of what each of you does as far as your business. It's not all just, you know, this is me and I like this and this is my favorite kind of ice cream and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you have to articulate clearly what you do. And even if the person never hires you, they might know somebody. They'll hear, you know, I have this issue. Oh, I know somebody. And if you've not articulated clearly what you do in that first call, they'll never be able to do that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important to, one, have follow-ups. There's so many people that go to networking events and never follow up. I literally, while I'm on the networking event, I look up their LinkedIn profile and ask for a one-on-one while I'm on that networking call with them. Right. And I don't always ask every single person, but I'll narrow down who I think are my people. Right. Because not everyone's my people. Right. And have a conversation. That does not mean I have an expectation of selling them, but sometimes it's just sharing what I do because they may know someone. Right. I run a very unique community. Not everyone knows we exist. 97% of the people that come into my community or learn about me is through word of mouth, no matter how much money I've spent on marketing. I can't outdo the amount of people that get introduced to me every single day. And literally, today I had to have a dozen people make introductions to me. Today was a really crazy day. It was just like, boom, boom, boom. Let me introduce. And I was like, I'm literally out of slots. I was like, I'm in mid-June already. And like, how do I keep it up? And that will happen when you start to just share what you do and share it with no expectations to sell. Does that make sense? I know when you don't have a lot of money, that in the back of your head, you're like, I got to make the sale. I got to make the sale. I got to make the sale. Right. But when you come from that place of scarcity, that shows up first. Your energy is reflecting on that person, and that desperateness shows in your energy. Whether you think it does or not, it does. When you have that desperate feeling, right? When you're like, hey, I'd love if you signed up and it's okay if you don't, more people will come to you and say, can you tell me more? Can you tell me more? And they'll be asking the right questions, right? I've told people, hey, you know what? You're not a good fit for me. Right. I had someone that mentioned me today that answered one of my emails about my summer accelerator. And I saw it come through and I was like, not a good fit for her. And in fact, the call I had before this was another guy that called about summer accelerator. And I went, I don't think this is a good fit for you. And you know what? It wasn't. Right. We talked about what he needed. That wasn't it. I was like, I can help you in this other way. But that program that you asked about is not a good fit for you. It's a real waste of your money. There's other things that you can just do. And sometimes it's just a call and I can tweak a few things, right? So being very truthful and very honest with people is really good too. People admire that and they're more likely to be what I call a raving fan. If you've never read that book from Ken Blanchard, creating raving fans is people that are telling other people about how great you are, right? That's my entire marketing strategy right there. And it's free. Right? Just being really good and really high value to everyone you meet. Okay, any questions on that? Because I want to talk a lot about, well, I'll talk about one thing that Hank brought up when we asked, and it was staying in the same thing because it's always brought you money, doing the same thing over and over, charging the same prices over and over and over. Because that's what used to work and it no longer works. And that happens in networking groups. It happens in a lot of things, right? I did this for a year and a half. I just got off the phone with a client that did that. It worked great last year, And I'm like, okay, if it worked great last year, something changed. What changed? And we had to dig a little bit. We found what changed because something had to have changed for it not to work anymore. But so there's two things I have about staying in the same lane, two opposite things. One is sometimes what started you off is not what's going to keep you going because you have grown as a person, right? So the people that I attracted 9 years ago is not my market today, right? The soul-based entrepreneur is still my market, but I'm working with a higher net worth person now. I'm working where I used to work with people that were still in hobbies and had part-time jobs and all this other things. They're not my people anymore. In fact, very few people in my community have that unless they know for a fact they're retiring or in a few months this is ending. Like they've already made the decision that this, whatever they're working on their business, is going to support them, right? It's a growth mindset. But I had to make that decision. Does that make sense? So you grow. So one of the reasons I don't run this boot camp anymore, as much as I love this boot camp, I know that when people finish this boot camp, they don't usually come into my membership because they can't afford it, because they're so stuck in scarcity and debt and everything else that they don't move on from that. There's a lot of inner work that has to take place, and this boot camp was a lot about the inner work. That I kind of went, okay, I can do inner work, but that's not really my strength. My strength is strategy. So let other people do the inner work, and I'll get them after that. Right. So that was one of the things I had to let go. So letting go, if you looked at your business, you could probably let go of 80% of what you do and keep the 20% that is so narrowed that keeps you going. Right. So this year for me, I'm letting go of my collaborative book series. The third one just went to the publisher. Letting go of my podcast that I've done for 4 years. Letting go of, I had a travel division called Soul Adventures, letting go of that. I let go of my boot camp, right? So I could create this space for me to do other things. You know what I love to do? Teach, right? So now I'm developing the Soul Professional School, which will probably be my next big launch, right? And just taking the summer to do the accelerator and write all the programs and do all of that. So I can let that go. But what I love to do is teach. That's my 20%. So I have to let go of 80% of what I do to go to this next level. Does that make sense? It's hard sometimes to let go of things that produce money, but sometimes you have to, right? I let go of all the lower level memberships. I started that last summer, right? So it's been a year of me letting things go slowly, right? Anita, you have a question?
Yeah, so I do the deep inner work with people. So and one of the questions I had was sometimes, so when I do offer someone, my primary focus is my 4-week program.
Okay.
And in order to have someone experience what I do, I sometimes do offer a session, a standalone, which is a smaller version of what the bigger program is all about.
Love that.
And as much as they get benefit out of it, they like the freebie, and then but they still don't buy into the big program. So I'd like your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah. So when I do freebies, it's a group like this. Right? So I'm showing up for an hour for the people that want to show up, and it's not one-on-one. Does that make sense? Like I have follow-up calls with people, right? If I'm meeting them and get to know who they are. But if I did something like a business audit or something like that, or a free strategy session, that would be a ridiculous waste of my time. Right. So, and everyone would take advantage of it. Right. And I would lose a lot of money. right? So you can have a one-off powerful session that's like cheaper, right? You can say, hey, I'll give you a 45-minute or a half-hour session or whatever that looks like. I don't know exactly how you run your session. So you could have like a tester session that people pay for, and it could be a lost leader, like $57, but you want them to spend the money
Mhm.
to go into that. Like, oh, I have this tester session. Would you like to do that? Right. Just like I have like a 2-pack strategy that some people buy because they need strategy. Right. So, or someone just needs an hour of my time or something. I can do that. So think about doing that and not just giving away your stuff. Right. Because people will take up free stuff all day long,
Yes.
but that's your fault, not their fault. It's the boundary that you have, right? I see a lot of doctors or people that have like therapists do it, like services like that takes like appointments and time. If you have a practice that like answer emails and questions all day long when that person should really be making another appointment with you, right? So I don't, and just like me, like I don't let people just shoot questions at me. Right. If they want my time, it's different if you're a member because then you have access to me. But even then I'll be like, let me jump on a call. I'm not answering an email for 15 minutes. Right. I'd rather just have a 5-minute conversation and answer it. But if it's like a full-blown strategy, that's a whole different thing. Right. So it's putting boundaries around your time. Right. I've worked with many doctors that like, hey, if you're going to answer email, that's like, a $50 charge, or like they don't get out of the charge of what your time is worth. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like when you do free stuff, like you can do a free healing circle or a free masterclass or a free something. So you're showing up anyway. So I show up to this, I do it for the people that show up. There's a replay that goes out to the community so people can see more of it, right? People get to experience me, my thoughts, right? Some people will, email me a question afterwards or something. That's all fine. Like but this is part of marketing, right? It could be the same for you. But when you're doing one-on-ones, I could never do that for everyone. If I don't know someone, I'll be like, hey, I don't really know you and your business. Let's jump on a call. But I don't continually do that. I don't jump on calls with people that need help that are just in my community. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone
No.
else?
Absolutely, thanks. And yeah, Hank's got his hand up, so.
Okay. Go ahead, Hank.
Well, I just want to comment on what you said about having a loss leader, $57, $58. The beauty of that is that it's nominal, but when they have some skin in the game, they're going to take it a little bit more seriously.
Absolutely.
And, one of the things too online too, when you're sharing things, instead of calling them free, call them complimentary, because people look at free and they think it has no value. But
Agreed.
complimentary in their mind gives them a little bit more value.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed. Yeah. And the name is totally escaping me. The free giveaways people give all the time. What are those things called? I don't have one.
The loss leaders.
That like to get their email.
Oh,
Lead
yeah, the
magnet.
funnels. They're like funnels.
Lead magnet. That's it. Thank
Lead
you.
magnets.
Yeah. Like, I don't have one, but it's kind of the same thing, right? People scoop up free stuff all the time. But if you're not converting or it's taking your time, that's not actually free for you.
Mhm.
Right? So that's what you have to consider. All right. I do want to talk a lot about pricing. Oh, look, we're at almost the end of our time. I want to talk about pricing because I think that's the biggest. I didn't even get to go through exercises. I could talk about overcoming under earning for hours because I did a 12-week boot camp on it. But pricing is a big one. In fact, I wrote that down, finding courage to increase your prices as a masterclass that I'm going to add this year. A lot of times you can just increase your prices and the right people will start to come to you. right? And everyone has to kind of find what that balance is for them, right? But the person on the other end has to get value. It's not like you just increase your prices and you think there's this flood of people that are going to come. But if you're in a practice and there's a waiting list, right, that's a lot of value that you're bringing to the table and people want to get in. So one way to help with that is start to increase your prices for the new people coming in. I tend to grandfather people that wherever they come in. So like in our membership, if you come in on a sales price, you're that sales price for the length of your membership, right? I don't screw you later on and increase it. That's where you are. So I'm a big person in believing that. But when you increase your prices, that's when you really start to see value. And it only has to be a little bit until you're ready. Like just 10% makes a big difference because it's a ripple effect, right? So if I have some fees here because I don't do math really well. This is another class. It's called The Power of Raising Your Fees. I have some math. So if you we're just talking about the ripple effect. Say you bring in $50,000 a year, right? And you're just increasing your fees by 10%, right? That's another $5,000 a year, right? So that goes to 55. But 10% is really very nominal. No one's going to say, oh my gosh, you raised your fees, I can't afford that. Like 10% is so little. It's not even like the rate of inflation and everything isn't even keeping up with a lot of our pricing, right? A lot of you haven't probably increased your pricing for all of the years you've done things. But if you literally if you think, especially you guys that are in private practices, if you just got 10 extra dollars an hour, right? $80 a day, right? Say you worked 8 hours a day and you got 10 extra dollars a day, right? So that's $80 a day and you multiply that by 5, that's an extra $400 a week by just increasing your price $10 an hour. Okay, $400 a week times 4 weeks is another $1,600 a month, right? You didn't change anything. You didn't bring on new people. You didn't do a thing, but increase by $10 an hour. Okay, your babysitters probably raised their prices $10 an hour. Okay, that's $1,600 a month, which is $19,200 a year. How many people would just really love to make an extra $19,000 a year? Right? $10 an hour. Right? Can you imagine if you really increased it more than that? I know a lot of you are underpriced. So let's say one of your sessions is $120 an hour, right? If we increase that by 10%, that's $12, right? And it's not that much because 120 times 10%. Oh, I already know it's $12. So it's so if you went from 120 to 132, do you think you'd lose any clients? Probably not. And let me tell you something, if you did, it'd probably be a blessing. Because those are not the clients you want. Right? So it's just baby steps, just a little bit can have a huge impact on your actual pay, right? Just that little bit. I know a lot of you probably have not raised your fees, but many times when you're undercharging, it's because you feel like they might go to somebody else instead of me. Let them go, right? Because if they don't see the value, I just did this with someone else yesterday. And she was so under market, like so crazy under market. And I was like, that's why you have a waiting list. I was like, just stop. Let's double your fees. We're doubling your fees. Right. But when we looked at other people in her industry, she was still the lowest after doubling her fees. Right. And I said, if people want to leave, let them leave because they will end up coming back. Right. I've had people that left membership and came back at a higher price. Let them. right? Because it also frees up your time. So even though it's scary to lose some people, I promise you, when you open up time in your schedule, other people that pay more will show up. I promise you that will happen, because that's why you're opening your schedule, for more opportunity. Does that make sense? But you have to first be 100% confident in who you are and the value that you give, because most of your pricing is based on your own self-worth, and you can't find it in yourself, or you're saying, I don't know if people would pay me for that, or I just want to help this one person, right? That's your scarcity coming forward. Does that make sense? Anita, what do you have to say? Wait, you're on, go ahead.
To this point of, that you're saying, I think it's also none of our business to judge what other people can or cannot afford.
Yes.
Because I had a client who, it was financially difficult. My program is $1,800 for 4 weeks, but she recognized what the value was, and every week she showed up, she used a different credit card to pay for it. And she said that's what she was willing to do because she knew what this could do for her. So when I look at that, it's like, who am I to judge what someone's financial situation is and how they can, if they want something and they know what it can do for them, they will make it happen. So
absolutely will, right? And if they're saying no, it's because they haven't been sold on your program or your value, or maybe it's just not what they need right now. Right. So I don't force people to say, well, and I really hate when people say, if you really wanted to do it, you'd find the money. Because one, it is true. I just really don't want to. You just proved to me that I really don't want to do it. Right? So, and it's okay if people really don't want to do it. Right. I'm not going to sit there and say how you have to do it. But I have watched people say that I've even watched people like leave my program, go to another program for like twice as much money, and then be like, I made such a big mistake. Can I come back at the same price? No, you can't, right? Because you had to leave to go see the value, but I'm not taking that hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, one, let people leave. Find the value, but you have to find it in yourself. And the biggest problem that you have in under-earning is your self-confidence, your belief in your value, because people will find it if you're hanging around the right people, right? You could just be hanging around the wrong people, right? So if you're hanging around a lot of people that are in victim mode and scarcity mode and like, I don't spend money mode, you're going to stay there as well, right? You are who you hang out with. Does that make sense? I have here, I'll read it. Oh, I know we have 4 minutes left. I'm going to read this to you anyway, because I love it, because it's on our, I put this up on our homepage just to explain a little better who we are. And I wrote, if you hang around 5 confident people, you will become the 6th. If you hang around 5 intelligent people, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you will be the 6th. If you hang around 5 struggling entrepreneurs, you will be the 6th. So that's a little bit about why you should hang with us. Because you are who you hang out with, and you become that belief system becomes more of it. All right. I think I answered everything. I didn't even do one exercise from this book, but that's okay. I will tell you a great exercise that I always tell everyone is you can do this in home, but sit with yourself and see how it feels in your body when you say, like, I make $25,000 a year, and see if you feel good about it, and then raise it. I make $50,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year. I make 150,000, and keep bringing it up and see where your body starts to resist it, because that's your earning ceiling. And you can do that by the hour too. You can say like, my hour is worth $100. My hour is worth $200. My hour is worth, and see where that resistance is, and then start working on that resistance by saying like, I am worthy. Does that make sense? All right. All right, I know we are wrapping up, so I just want to tell you guys, this replay goes out. You can reach me for anything that you need. We have our group networking the third Tuesday of every single month, so make sure that's in your calendar. And tomorrow at 10 a.m., I am talking about my new summer accelerator program. If you're interested in that, you can just show up. It's an information call about what that summer accelerator is going to be. It's a program that I'm writing this summer and executing this summer, and it's bringing people through the entire business process. And I will be strategizing and working with them on their full business plan for 3 months for a small cohort of people. And I think that's all I got. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
No, I loved it. It's what we needed to hear, right? Just to reframe our thought process again. Life gets in the way, things jump out in front of us that tend to derail us. So it's nice to have that focus back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens to all of us. Yeah, so you don't have to worry. It definitely happens to all of us. All right.